What's the number one challenge for businesses today?
Workforce development, attracting, recruiting, and retaining people.
And that's why we created this podcast, designed for the frustrated CEO, the under-resourced recruiter, or the overworked manager, to give you the tools to tackle those WTF moments.
It's time to open another workforce therapy file.
Welcome back to the Workforce Therapy Files, our season finale. And today we have Dr. Brad Shuck of the University of Louisville and OrgVitals. Welcome.
No,
Welcome, Brad.
I'm so excited to be here with you guys.
I'm excited to have you.
It's going to be amazing. Like you don't normally interview people, right? So this is kind of a thing today.
You are the first interview, and the season finale.
Man.
So two big milestones for
I'm
us.
super
is.
excited about this. This is going to be amazing today.
Yeah.
No pressure.
None. Zero.
Well, tell us about OrgVitals.
Yeah, so OrgVitals is a company that I co-founded with two friends, Charley and Kristina Rodriguez. OrgVitals is a data analytics platform built for the future of work, and we take data that traditionally has been hidden and in the dark, and we put light to that. So we find ways to help leaders really action a lot, like put data into action in a way that's proactive and helpful for them, and we give them insights. OrgVitals is spun out of some of the IP that I developed as a researcher at the University of Louisville. So I'm super excited about it. The company's going great. We're continuing to build out. We're experimenting with AI, machine learning, and how that's impacting the work that we're doing, but also the work that we're giving and the insights that we're giving to our clients.
Wow. How's the data collected, just in general, if you were to summarize in general?
Yeah, so the data is collected on a really elegant platform, super easy to use. That is a series of questions that you'll answer around engagement or community or belonging or how you feel about just the overall work environment. And then we also do some social network analysis where we overlay connections, organic connections within the organization on top of that culture data so that you can actually see that data in real time and really gain insights about what's happening. So if you can imagine that most data is like one-dimensional, we put a three-dimensional layer onto that data and then give that back to the organization. It's super cool and one of a kind for sure.
So if our listeners want to check that out, where do they go?
Yeah, orgvitals.com is the best place to go, or you can hit me on LinkedIn. At Dr. B. Shuck is my LinkedIn handle. I'd be thrilled to connect with anybody that's looking for a data analytics platform, looking for a partner that they can trust, and that really understands the data science piece behind that.
Yeah, we're all in this room huge fans of data and using that to back up, our ideas and theories, and not just jumping in feet first. So,
And for what it's
love
worth,
that
Brad,
idea.
Dr. Brad, do you like doctor?
Brad's cool.
Okay. For what it's worth, I think the platform, because I've used surveys for over 20 years, and one of the things I absolutely love about the platform, it's super easy to set up.
Yeah.
The data is really easy to read, but the really sexy feature for me is that network map.
Mm-hmm.
So
Totally.
there is a tool within OrgVitals where you can actually see who are your connectors in your organization, and when you think about the possible applications for that, it is incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
So it's like your engagement surveys meet who are my people that I should bring in when I'm making a big change, or I want to get their insights and understand who are the people who are positively spreading messages in our organization, and who are those that we might want to engage in a different way.
Yeah.
It's a really cool tool to use with clients.
Yeah, we try to visually and physically map that data for clients and then give them back insights that they can use today.
So what size company is the ideal customer here?
That's changed over the last couple of years. I would have told you it would have been small to medium-sized companies, but we've worked with enterprise clients over the last 12 months, and that's gone really, really well. So we don't really have a ceiling right now on the type of company or the size of the company. We are looking to work with organizations who want to use data in new and innovative ways and push the boundaries about what's possible around creating what we think is the future of work.
Okay, that's fascinating.
Yeah,
It
man.
is.
All right, well, we're going to talk afterwards because our company, Crowd South, we do some social listening campaigns early on for clients when we first engage, and we kind of see what is being said. So I'd love to know more about how we can incorporate what OrgVitals does too.
Can't wait to hear from you and anybody that's listening today. Let's jump in and see how we can work together.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So, Brad, I know that you're our first guest
Boom.
on Workforce Therapy Files. We're excited to have you. We knew we wanted you as our first guest, so we've got some pretty big questions for you today.
Okay.
Jamie, Jason, are we ready?
I think so.
Oh my.
Okay,
Ready.
Brad,
I'm ready.
what is happening in the workplace today?
It's a big question. It's a
Huge.
it's a big question. It is a question I talk about a lot. And companies all over the world are asking this question. All right, like where's this going? Where are the kind of the currencies? Where are the wind steering things? Like, what do I do about this? And sometimes I work with folks who will say, look, can we just like pause this for a second and then go back 5 years and just kind of like reinstate what this was like? And I get all of that. It's a comfortable place to be, and it was a comfortable time and a comfortable environment for some folks. I would imagine some of your listeners have kids. I have a 13-year-old daughter. She's an amazing young lady, very responsible, very caring. I love her a lot, but her bathroom is a mess. She's 13, and so it's gross. And what's particularly gross is her sink. You can imagine what a 13-year-old girl's sink looks like. And
She's going to love that you said all this, too, because that goes over really well with 13-year-old girls.
Yeah.
Well, the 13-year-old demographic is really hot on this.
Hot on this.
According
It's
to your
hot on the-
social listening
I think,
campaign.
Jim, that's a spike for us, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's gonna
Yeah,
be.
we're
it's
really
gonna be
big with the
amazing.
13-year-olds.
What I find the most often when I go into her bathroom and look in the sink is lots of toothpaste. And there's just like this, there's a need to squeeze the toothpaste tube
Did
too hard.
you mean to do that? Need to squeeze?
Yeah, you
It's
like
really
that?
good.
It
I
was
do.
really
I
good.
like it.
Hashtag.
It was totally
Hashtag
plain.
need to squeeze.
If there's a hashtag for this episode, it's need to squeeze.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm like, well, that's really wasteful. Like I wish I could put that toothpaste back into the toothpaste tube.
That is
And-
also okay. I gotta pause, Brad.
Yeah, go.
Because
Yeah.
that is also like a total dad response.
Yes.
To toothpaste in the
Yeah.
sink is
Yeah,
wanting
yeah.
to like put it back in the tube.
So wasteful.
Please go ahead.
There have been some things that have happened over the last 3 years that I'm realizing, like, I'm just kind of the dad now. Like, I'm making dad-like
Yes.
decisions. This is one of them, for sure. So I think, like, all right, I'm going to put the toothpaste back in the tube because I don't want to waste it and blah, blah, blah. I don't want to have to go to the store, get another tube. And I'd rather just have the tube that I had, right? Let's just have that tube. Have you ever tried to put toothpaste back in? I tried one time.
From her sink?
Yeah, I mean, why not? I mean, it's still there. I mean, you can like rehydrate that. You know what I'm saying? It'll be
No,
Okay,
I don't.
Brad.
So
Brad.
Trigger
yes.
warning.
Ew.
Yeah.
Ew.
Gross. Okay. All right. I'm cool.
Said her
There's
bathroom
no
was
Dr.
gross.
Brad in that statement.
There's a different doctor involved if you do
different
that.
doctor.
Yes.
So you try to put the toothpaste back in the tube, and you just get really frustrated because there's a little bit that like is around the rim, but like nothing of substance goes in. And so you start to get like really frustrated, and then it begins to get really messy, and then you begin to like project bitterness, and you're like, there's all these emotions that come up. And I feel like when people say, I would like to go back 5 years ago, and I would like for work to be just like that, it's like putting toothpaste back in the tube. Mm-hmm. Look, you get really frustrated. The leaders get really frustrated. The employees get really frustrated. It gets kind of messy because people have all these emotions that are tied into all of these things that have happened. Nobody's really landed at any place right now. And so for me, when we say, gosh, I wish I could just go back. I wish things were the way that they were back in XYZ. For me, that's like putting the toothpaste back in the tube. I just don't think you can do that without some serious intervention there. And I think that's the state of the workforce right now, is that we're at a place where there are some things that have changed, and we need to recognize those things and take some action on those things.
Yeah, that seems like it's a very kind of a Zen thing to think about too, because in many aspects of our lives, including our work life, it's important to be present here and now.
Sure.
Let's look at our existing problems. Let's not wish things were the way they were, or wish things are going to be the way they are 6 months from now. Let's just enjoy it where it is and try to manipulate it and do what we can with what we've got.
Solid.
So,
Solid advice.
yeah.
Love it.
So,
Sorry.
go for it.
I think it's interesting how they're in conversations that you have in the world that I live in, which is mostly recruiting and retention, working with senior leaders and key decision makers within organizations. And they'll say things like, I wish we could go back to pre-COVID, or I wish things were the way they used to be. you hear that often, and I'm sure, like you said, you do too. But isn't it interesting how we want things to be the way that they were with the innovation and forward thinking that we have today?
Yeah.
I get that there can be a balance, but when you think about the true understanding of the organization and the workforce that's there, you have to be able to balance both of those mentalities with such a fine perspective of how to grow everyone.
Yeah.
Or appreciate those that are completely content with where they are.
Absolutely, and I think that's what I'm excited about with the technology advancements we've seen over just the last 12 to 18 months.
Yes,
and being able to utilize things like artificial intelligence and be
in
able
the right way.
In the right way. And there's ethics, and there needs to be left and right limits around those things.
Yes,
I get asked about that, like, all right, well, don't you think AI is going to put us out of a job? No, I don't.
No.
If we hadn't have introduced, for example, I had the chance to talk with a guy by the name of Kevin Suris. Kevin Suris is the father of the Siri technology that's in your phones, or the Alexa technology that's in your phone. Kevin is a super, super duper smart guy. And he made the comment that if we hadn't have introduced the manufacturing line for automobiles, if Ford hadn't introduced that manufacturing line, that cars today would cost $300,000.
Wow.
I'm talking about the assembly line.
The assembly line,
methodology.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, thank you. The assembly line. I don't have $300,000 to buy a car. Like that's outside of my limits. And at the time when they introduced the assembly line, everybody was very concerned. Like, well, my job's going to be gone. Like, I'm not. Well, actually, what ended up happening was the explosion of the demand for the car, which demanded more workers, that demanded more skills, more advanced skills. I think that's what's going to happen here with the advent of artificial intelligence. I'm excited about that because what I think is going to happen is those tasks that we could use some support with that would help us create space to be more human will now be able to be realized. Like, we're going to be able to have time to really connect and build relationships.
I like that.
Versus like doing tasky stuff.
Yeah. More augmented.
Yeah, 100%.
Versus artificial.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's going to be a terrific revolution for sure.
Do you think we'll get back to focusing on relationships?
I mean, I think that's going to be key. I think it's going to be absolutely key.
I think if we want to have a world in which we live that is camaraderie and collaborative and friendly, kind, we're going to have to, because nobody knows how to communicate. Okay. That was a blanket statement. That's not fair. Several people don't know how to communicate effectively anymore, and that is speaking specifically to leaders and their team members.
Sure. And I think the way we communicate is going to change. I mean, I did mention...
Well, it has to.
It is changing. I mean, I mentioned I have a 13-year-old. The way that she communicates with her friends and builds relationships is completely different than the way that I was raised. I mean, I was on a landline phone that my father could pick up on and listen into and be like, you got 10 minutes, before dinner. And now my daughter's got, oodles of apps and access to the world and access to her friends and FaceTime. And I mean, every morning she FaceTimes with a couple of friends. And I'm like, what are you doing?
Aren't you going to see each other in like 20 minutes?
Yeah, you're going to see each other. And they're literally they're brushing their teeth and squeezing toothpaste into a sink. And
That's why there's so much in the sink. They're not paying attention.
There you go. There's the problem for the toothpaste in the sink.
Yeah, I've solved it. This is already changing my life.
Focus on the mirror. Just go ahead and write it.
That's the therapy and workforce therapy file.
Yeah.
That's just how I read.
We had like a 30-foot cord on the telephone in our kitchen, and you could take it almost anywhere in the house. And it would stretch. Those little curls would straighten out.
Did you ever stretch them like to where you thought like it was going to break?
It's never going to go back.
Yeah,
and shut it in a door so you can have some privacy. It's going to snap.
And the world is so different today, and so embracing that is, I think, important. And it's a skill that we need to help other people learn how to do.
Yes.
So, Brad, one of the things that I think is really interesting about your research, I love reading the stuff that you put out there.
Oh, thank you.
For example, things like how wellness impacts your overall. Let me try that again. How your wellness impacts your overall health.
Yeah.
There are really cool articles that Dr. Brad and team have put out there about that. But I've also heard this piece about currencies of work. And, when I first heard you talk about currencies of work, in my mind, I was like, are you paid appropriately? And do you have great benefits? And how much is in your 401k? But that's not what you mean.
Nope.
So why don't you tell us about the number one thing that you see that is a major, well, first of all, what is a currency?
Yeah, so I think a currency right now is something that is moving the needle on motivation and engagement and creativity and innovation. It's something that is a driving force in the workplace right now.
So are these themes that you've pulled from the OrgVitals participants, or are you pulling research from a lot of different places?
Yeah, so it's a blend of that. So at OrgVitals, we have done this work for sure. And we have thousands upon thousands of people that have told us about their experiences of work. And so we've taken that data and kind of collated that data down and distilled it into some nuggets. But also we've cross-referenced that and validated that with other research that I do through my work at the University of Louisville or do with partners out in the field. Mm-hmm. I do want to say one thing, because Jamie, I think you talk about something that's really important, and that is ensuring that people are adequately paid. Mm-hmm. I talk with companies a lot, and I say, look, if you have a compensation problem, it's the only problem you have. If people are not paid appropriately, they can't pay. They can't pay their light bills. Mm-hmm. They can't save for their 401k. They can't take care of their families. You have a massive issue. Like, you have to solve that issue, or you're not going to have people leaning in. And so we have to solve for that issue. But it is a satisfier, not an engager. It's something that is satisfying, which means, like, I have what I need to be in status quo, but I don't have what I need to be moving forward. And I think there are 5 other currencies beyond that I think are really moving people forward right now. And the first one of those things is the idea of stability. Stability is... Well, I think about our current climate right now. I can't think of one place where I can look and it feels stable. I mean, our political climate is unstable. Our financial markets are unstable. There's chaos all over the world. Everywhere we look, there's some sense of something's going on. And so I think employees are really looking for a place where there's a sense of stability. Like, I know, like, this is so basic. I know what's expected of me at work. Like, that sounds so massively pedestrian, right? Like, well, obviously, you should know what's expected of you at work. But we know from talking with employees that many people don't know what's explicitly expected of them at work. Absolutely. And if they don't know what's expected of them at work, how do they even understand the resources they need to do the work that they're being asked to do, that at the end of the year, they're going to be evaluated on? Someone's going to sit with them, hopefully, and there's going to be a report, I'm sure, of some kind, and someone's going to pass judgment on them based upon that expectation or that resource.
100%. And here's a real life story to go along with that from recent.
Yeah.
I worked with a client, 25 hours worth of investigatory work with allegations of harassment, discrimination, retaliation. And to be completely frank, it boiled down to roles and responsibilities.
Yes.
It was, you're making decisions on the fly about who's doing what. I know that your motivation is who's standing there, and so that's who you're having do that. But to other people, it looks like you're doing that because you had a preference or a distaste for someone else, and that's why they didn't get to do what you just assigned that person to do. And that was like rampant. Like, I could give them 5 or 6 examples that came up where not identifying the expectation and not letting people know how you determine those expectations has created a massive heap of challenges for you guys that now you have to win back trust for the individuals that work there.
I recently was in a Fortune 50 company and meeting with their executive team, and this young lady hurriedly hustles in the room and flips out her notepad and gets her computer going. And they're like, oh, this is so-and-so. She just got promoted into this executive vice president role. And we're like, what?
Like, literally?
Like she got promoted like 10 minutes before the meeting. And she's going, and like, you can tell there's this, there's unclarity about the expectation, like what's happening.
Yeah, that fake it till you make it face.
Absolutely. And
And
we're
then
like,
she gets thrown in this meeting.
yeah. And so in my mind, I'm like, how
so
do
proud
I
of you.
help her? Like, what can I do to help her feel?
Time out.
Yeah. Let's pause this meeting for a second. Mm-hmm. But I think in organizations, like, what are the and we're going to say this a lot. What are the artifacts of stability? Where's the communication channels? If I was to look around the organization, how would someone know that this is a place where I don't have to guess every day, that I know what's coming, I have a sense of stability, because literally all around them is instability. I mean, even in some places in their house, leaving for the morning. I mean, my
Toothpaste in the sink.
yeah, toothpaste in the sink. I mean, crazy stuff happening in the morning. And sometimes coming to work, you just want a sense of like, I know what's coming and I can predict that. Prediction. And I think this is what people are saying when they say, can we go back to 5 years ago? We know what that felt like. And that feels good. That's comfortable. And so how do we help pull that sense of comfort forward so that people feel like there's that sense of stability in what's going on?
And I would say that I think a lot of what's happened in the world in the last 4 years attributes to that, because 5 years ago, the conversation was more of, well, W-2 is just a false sense of security. So understanding that we have to put it in a situation of terms of where we are today.
Yeah.
Meeting humans
Right.
where they are today because of what we've lived through and the instability, that's now the search for stability. So
And so that leads me to the second currency, which is this idea of flexibility. And if there's one like thematic conversation I have over and over and over again, it is, what do we do about return to work? I don't know. I don't know what it's like to work for you or your company or what your needs might be. I'm not sure if there are positions that have left and right limits. But for me, flexibility is about a sense of agency. Agency in my work, that I feel like I have some influence over how my work gets done. And maybe perhaps in some instances, when it's applicable, where that work gets done. I love to tell a story about a chief information officer that was talking about being on vacation. And he had his laptop with him, and probably shouldn't have been working on vacation, but he, you know, he's being a responsible leader. And he got a note back at headquarters that all of their servers had gone down. So he pops his laptop open. He's sitting on the edge of the Grand Canyon and fixes the servers from the Grand Canyon, closes his laptop, and goes about his business and does his thing. It isn't about remote, hybrid work from. That's the wrong thing to be talking about. What we should be talking about is accessibility and agency, and where we can afford that to employees, we should do that, because I think that right now is a competitive advantage for organizations.
Absolutely. One of the things I like to tell people is to start at your customer and work your way backwards. So if you were to think about each role as having a customer relationship with other people in the organization, understanding what that expectation is. So, because in that example, that is a perfect example of the customer in that situation is the company having its glitch. Can I solve that from where I'm at? If the answer is yes, then you're right where you're supposed to be, right?
That's right.
Now, where I've seen some challenges with that, though, with that flexibility, is the places where flexibility goes wrong is boundaries.
Absolutely.
Right? And trying to make sure that we have some respect for not everybody's on the clock all the time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's right. And that there are some things that don't have as much flexibility as other things, right? Like I think about at the University of Louisville, for example. Like we have terrific security, police officers that patrol our campus. It'd be very difficult to do that job remotely, right? Like we need them.
Absolutely.
We need our officers to be on campus.
essential workers have
Yeah.
yeah.
And that's a real conversation, right?
Yes.
Or the assembly line that Brad talked about.
Of course.
It's really hard to put together a car when we're all sitting at our houses.
It's difficult to do that. And so, but is there agency in that? I think there is. And I think, you know, shutting down those conversations is the wrong thing to do, but rather how do we amplify accessibility and how do we amplify agency in a way that helps people feel like they have some influence in how that work gets done?
There have been some companies that have gotten really creative with that. I saw one large retailer that the way that they were hiring their hourly staff was they got to go and choose the hours they were available to work. And then what the manager would do is go back and share what hours were still remaining.
Yep.
They were available for,
Which is interesting to me because, wow, that's not how I remember my hourly days.
Right.
I don't know if they're still doing it, but Target was doing that during the pandemic. They were giving their employees, you know, you give me your schedule, employee, and
We'll
see
figure it
what
out.
it's-
Yeah. I think. Go ahead.
So stability, flexibility.
Yeah.
What are the other three?
Yeah, the third, which bleeds into these, and let me connect stability to flexibility to stability really quickly. I think you need to be clear. Like whatever your plan is, just be clear about it and just give a clear why. Like help people understand the reasons behind what's happening here. Integration, when we talk about the third currency, this idea of integration is about areas of life that have traditionally not been included in the value proposition of work are now being included in how employees are thinking about their work. And I'll give you a very personal example of that. 5 years ago, I would have never believed that I could pause work at 3:30 and go to a middle school girls soccer practice to help assistant coach a team. That wasn't possible in my world at that point. Mm-hmm. However, over the last couple of years, my family has become a real priority for me in some very specific ways. That's a part of my value proposition. When I think about what's being asked of me around work, I have to think about integrating that other piece. And I think this is a sticky point for some organizations because they don't like that. They're like, well, now wait a second. Now, I come back after soccer practice and I check my email and I do the things I need to get done and prepare for the next day. And so there's a sense of agency and flexibility in how I do my work, right? There's a sense of stability around that. But this idea of integration is that there have been these areas of life that we haven't oftentimes thought about. Our health and well-being, our families, our community engagement, how we're connecting with people that are outside the walls of work is now becoming something that people are thinking more and more about when they think about the value proposition of what it means to work today.
Yeah. Our company is remote. We have people in 8 cities.
Totally.
And so I get asked regularly by other business owners, how do you know what they're doing?
Yes.
How do you know if they're doing their job?
Yes.
If the job gets done, then they did it, right?
That's right.
I don't care if they outsource it. I don't care if they whatever. But if they've got to, I mean, at the end of the day, for us, it's about client satisfaction and results. And so if that's happening, I don't care how they get it done. Yeah. And our work style has changed.
Yes.
So we're working when we're at lunch, we're answering emails. When we're late at night, whatever that is. But then we can open up that pocket to go coach the soccer team.
That's right.
I love it.
That's exactly right.
I enjoy it personally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I've taken my health and well-being more seriously over the last couple of years. I go to a boxing class regularly. I'm at the gym regularly. I'm coaching soccer regularly, and I'm also killing it at work. Like I can do all of those things. Yeah. Because there's this sense of integration that I've got with my life, and I think that's an important conversation.
So integration is like work and life integration. Yeah. That's what we're talking about.
And it's the value. I think it's how people are making decisions about is it worth it? Like people are saying, is it worth it to do that? Is it worth not being able to go to the gym? Is it worth not being able to not coach soccer? Is it worth not being able to get that project? Or can I extend that timeline? And I think people are making different decisions about that value proposition. And that's been an interesting phenomenon for leaders to grapple with in conversations.
Well,
and I don't know if I'm alone in this, and maybe it's my generation, but it has been really hard for me to wrap my personal head around the fact that I have that flexibility.
Yeah, absolutely.
In fact, if it's between the hours, I've gotten a little flexible on the start time, but if it's between the hours of 9 and 5, and I'm not doing something that is productive, responding to someone, moving things forward.
Guilt.
Totally.
So much guilt and shame.
I'm so there.
So much guilt and shame.
So there.
And so much pride for the things I do after 5.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like, I'm
medal.
killing it. I'm out here.
Yeah.
I'm working a bazillion hours
That's
a week.
right.
This is not the reason I started this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so people who know me really well will hear me vocalize those pieces because learning how you can get integrated yourself has just been a challenge, and how to give yourself space to explore the freedom that comes with it.
It's been the challenge of the year for me. And I use the word divorce myself of the feelings of value that I once had. Mm-hmm. Those have just significantly changed. And it has been the journey of the year for me. That's been the most significantly difficult thing for me to do.
You just formed your 5th LLC. I don't know how many LLCs you have, but I feel like there's a bunch.
I love it.
Mm-hmm. All right, so what's number 4?
All right, number 4 is, this is going to come as no surprise to anybody listening here, is purpose. I think this has always been a currency of work, but I think its importance has taken on a much more critical factor as we think about like what's moving the needle. What are the driving forces at work? Look, employees are not doing work that doesn't have a direct line of sight to purpose. Like human beings have become really good at saying, this is a meaningless task, and I'm not going to do it. And that's why we see things like quiet quitting and minimal Mondays. And I mean, we can, all the different things out there. And then now there's quiet hiring, and there was I think the idea of purpose is a kind of a North Star for so many people in a lot of areas of their life, where if we're not seeing meaning and we don't see a direct line of sight to how that is impacting something, we're just not doing it. We're just making a different decision. And so I think it's an unrealistic expectation to say, well, you should just do the job because you should. Well, maybe, but I think there's a better way to do that in saying, well, here's how your work is impacting. And in many places, it isn't about helping someone see the meaning. It's about not killing the meaning. Like I think about educators. If you've ever met like a newly graduated kindergarten teacher, like they're pumped, they're excited. They are on the edge of their seat to get started.
Yes.
And then 5 years later, they're like, for the love of God, I just need a nap. I'd rather do anything else than this. And so here was a job that has inherent meaning. Like someone sees a sense of purpose in this work. And over 5 years, that purpose gets killed. And I think pointing back to that and being like, look at how you're impacting lives, the things that really matter to those employees becomes a really, really critical piece of the puzzle when it comes to the currencies of work.
So as an employer, what's the number one thing I can do to instill a sense of purpose?
Tell people.
Yeah.
And just say, I want you to know that the work you did here had this impact. Or what are the artifacts of purpose around the organization? How do people know that their work has meaning? Are there pictures? Are there stories? What's the narrative? But I think the simplest thing we can do is just tell people.
Yeah.
I also would encourage managers, so who are not necessarily speaking for the company as a whole, to find the purpose for your team and how it relates to the overall purpose. It is a really good thing to talk about. Like when I used to have a team of recruiters, I would talk about how they were the red carpet for our organization. You're the ones that help people feel confident that they've made the right choice and they should feel excited to be part of this. So we have to make this a seamless process, right? And it's about tying it back to each person's purpose for being part of that organization.
Yeah. I think we get into trouble when work becomes just transactional.
Yes.
But really, like what Jamie's talking about, just loving on people, I think is the right thing to do.
In an
always.
HR-friendly way. That's your parcel compliance tip.
Don't get all touchy-feely, and then there's a report and
let's not do
harassment.
that. That's different.
But if you
Avoid
do,
those.
give parcel a call.
Jim, this is the part where you put in the soundbite from, I don't know if anyone saw the Mad Men episode. Did everybody here watch
Huge
Mad
fan.
Men?
Huge.
Yeah.
Jim's like, I'm not paying for that.
Where he says, that's what the money's for.
Right.
He says, you don't ever say
Nice.
thank you or good job.
Nice.
That's what the
That's what the
money's
money's
for.
Nice.
So number 5.
Number 5 is
What's
belonging.
that?
Yeah, number 5 is belonging. Again, this isn't a surprise to anybody, but my wife has a saying, we can do hard things together. And I think that that's true. I think when we're isolated and we're alone and we're not connected and we feel like we're just out there on an island by ourselves, doing hard things is a much harder task. But when we're with a community of people who we know have our backs, who have shown us that, not just through their words, but have demonstrated that through their actions, that when we belong, we can do really, really hard things. We can do stressful things together. We can do complicated things together. We can sift through and sort through difficult problems together and have difficult conversations. But when we feel like we're alone, we have a tendency to just push back from the table.
Yeah. What's a good thing, and this is for the group, what's a good lever we can pull as employers when a new person comes into the team?
Yeah.
Or a new group, or we form a new department. There's some big change. What's the thing we can do to get everyone on the same page as far as belonging and feeling part of that?
I would like to offer 2 suggestions. One, go back and listen to our episode on onboarding, because a lot of it is about helping people feel like they belong really quickly. The second thing is, I'm going to challenge people to ditch some of the performative things that we do to make people feel like they belong. So post 2020, people don't always care whether or not you've got a ping pong table or that you've got all of those things that make it fun to be at work, right? In fact, it's been very interesting because all these things about flexibility and integration are saying that how we want to belong is we want to hear that you understand that I've got a life outside of here. We want to hear that you understand that I have a passion for this topic, so you brought me into it. We want to hear that you say my name when I'm not in a room as somebody that can be trusted to work on that. Like belonging looks different. In my estimation, it looks very different than what companies used to do to make people feel like they belong. I've worked at places that had all of those like ping pong tables and shuffleboard outside. But if you were seen using those, it would be like, what are you doing? You don't have a job?
working?
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
That's right.
So in summary, what would you say? So these are the 5. None of them are more important than the other? Or are there?
No. I wouldn't put them in a rank order.
Yeah.
I would say these are just the 5 things right now that I think are really shaping the way that work is being experienced. And let me answer your question really quickly. Have a meal.
Yeah.
I love sitting down to have a meal with people. It is, for me, that it's just a game-changing experience when I can break bread, share a meal, have time with people to just be and to share in that moment. It doesn't have to be a long or overdrawn thing. Like you don't have money, fine, have a potluck. That's okay. Or take that person out. How many people go to work on their first day and there's no plans for lunch? And they're like, well, I guess I'll just go to Taco Bell by myself.
Hey, you know what, Brad? We actually used to have this thing where you could spin the wheel in your first week.
Nice.
And it had all the restaurants that were around so that we could decide where we were going to go eat on your first day.
I love it.
Dinner
And
spinner.
We gave it, dinner spinner.
Hashtag dinner
Oh.
spinner. That's the second hashtag for the show.
We had it at a
That
place I
trademark
worked,
that
but it was-
immediately, the
Listen,
dinner
no,
spinner.
already got it. You listeners don't get all crazy. Molly's on it.
I love it.
You already made a dinner
Go to
spinner.
dinnerspinner.com.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Order yours
It's
today.
happening.
That's fantastic.
Let me get through this, and it'll happen.
Fantastic.
All right. So I understand there could potentially be a bonus, number 6.
Ooh, there is a bonus that is emerging right now, and that's the area of well-being. Directly connected to the research we're doing that Jamie mentioned
Hyphenated?
earlier. Well-being is not a hyphenated word. Wellness in some areas, maybe. I don't know. Maybe there's a difference between wellness and well-being. That seems fleshy. I'm not
we'll
sure
flesh it out
about
later.
that. I'm not sure. But the idea behind this is that we've got some emerging research that's come out of the university that is suggesting that work can exacerbate your risk for long-term chronic disease. Now, if I was to ask anyone, like, is that surprising? The answer to that question is no. But we needed the data to point to, and we were able to collect actual biological data and then smash that together with social science data around workplace experience, things like engagement and culture and community and belonging, isolation, things that we're talking about right here, and then show how someone's risk is either elevated or decreased based upon their work experience. This is a 3-year project that we took on. Dr. Rachel Keith, Dr. Candy Walker, and Dr. Joy Hart were all a part of that research team. We think it's absolutely groundbreaking, but right now, people are thinking about their health in uniquely different ways.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, think about it this way. How many of you guys have canceled a doctor's appointment because of a work obligation?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Did you say how many times?
You're like, literally reschedule every time my doctor's like, you're fired.
I think I'm on my 5th reschedule for a crown.
Yeah.
Molly just fires the doctor. It's much easier that way.
I get that.
So I was just going to say, look, surprise question.
Yeah.
But to wrap this thing up, and I'm going to put you on the spot.
That's okay.
Would you be open to coming back and talking about maybe one of these topics, and we really dive into something that, or maybe it's well-being, or how all that connects?
I would absolutely love that.
Okay.
I am so in on that for sure.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Season 2.
Season 2.
Get ready for it.
All right,
Buck-
I had a
buckle
different surprise question in mind.
Okay.
Okay, if you won the lottery tomorrow, it's up to like $1 billion.
Yeah, I saw that.
Mega
Yeah.
Millions is. Powerball is not there yet.
Okay.
Almost.
I'm getting a ticket though.
You know, either way, it's a lot of money.
Jamie's question is, if you win the lottery tomorrow, how much are you going to give her? And
Yeah.
That is
we're gonna-
actually not my
It's
question.
documented on the podcast.
But we all have a choice about our own personal purpose.
Yeah.
What are you doing What are you doing? Not who you're giving it to or
Yeah.
anything like that, but like, are you still doing this kind of work? Or have you found your jam? Or are you now driving an Uber? I don't know. Like, what's Brad's?
Yeah.
What's Brad's
So
thing?
First thing I'm going to do is call my financial advisor,
That's smart.
Michael Holland. Love him, and he knows he's my first phone call.
Oh, you've talked about this.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
We'll
Yeah,
have to
'cause-
make those plans.
Because in my life,
You can't be distracted. That's
No.
a lot of money.
yeah, 100%.
That's a lot of money.
I'll tell you a funny story that's very much connected to your question. So I knew someone that won the lottery. When I worked at Norwegian Cruise Line in Miami, Florida, one of our employees won the Florida lottery, and he won like $42 million.
Holy cow.
And he bought the ticket at some like obscure gas station, which is, I believe, to be the key to winning the lottery.
It's the obscure gas
You
station.
you,
Absolutely.
like don't get it at like some bougie place. Like it's got to be like some 5-star Shell offshoot.
Not that there's anything wrong with those.
and Beaver
labels.
Dam,
There's
Kentucky.
nothing wrong with those labels. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it needs to be like an obscure gas station someplace. So he wins $42 million. He comes to work the next day. And everybody was really surprised to see him. And he met with his financial team and did all the kinds of things, responsible adult things that you need to do, paid his taxes, things like that. And so on day 2, he brought in stacks of cash, in $5,000 stacks, and handed them out to people. And disappeared, and we never saw him again. Never
It's
saw him
like,
again.
this is wrapped in my 2 weeks notice.
And you know what he said? He said when
Just
he
kidding.
handed
I
out,
quit immediately.
When he handed out the money, he said, "Thank you." He said, "Thank you for being kind to me. Thank you for being nice. Thank you for always having my back. Thank you."
Not you, but you.
Yeah.
So he did that.
No.
Yeah. So
Not everybody got a stack of cash.
Brad was like,
I got a stack of cash.
Okay, good.
We put our hardwood floors in Crestwood with that stack of cash.
nice.
Yes.
When we moved from Miami back to Kentucky, I would very likely start a foundation. I can't imagine quitting my job at the university right now. I would fully fund OrgVitals for sure, and we would just take that to the next level and make sure that is a platform for everybody.
I mean, high five University of Louisville.
Yeah.
The fact that Dr.
wouldn't quit.
Brad would stay employed
Yeah.
if he didn't have to is absolute kudos to what
No, I
his
love my
experience has
work.
been like over
Yeah, I
there.
love my work. I love our students.
That's
I love
awesome.
our faculty. They're just terrific.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely.
That means you're living your best life over here, Brad.
I hope so.
I'm
I
happy
hope
for you
so.
for that. That's awesome.
So before we close this file and we close this season out, thank you, Brad, for coming on the show and sharing your wisdom with us. And these 5 major currencies of work, bonus 1, is great. And as I'm sitting here listening to you and Jamie and Jason and trying to take everything in and learning for myself, one of the biggest discrepancies of all things when I think about workforce is the business owner, the C-suite position. Those, to me, are the loneliest roles there are in a company.
Agreed.
And as the 5 of us technically, sit here around the table, if you don't surround yourself with people that you trust, that will be vulnerably honest with you and provide that lean-to that you need, you will fail.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do this on your own.
Sometimes
There's
you have
no
to
way.
create your own belonging, right, Molly?
Yes.
Yeah.
You have to create your own stability. You have to create your own flexibility. You have to give yourself grace when you know that the traditional hours aren't working for your life anymore. The integration of what it is that you wanted, why you went out on your own in the first place. Your purpose. What is your gift? Know that, own it, and let everybody else do the things that they're good at around you.
Mm-hmm.
And that the sense of belonging, it just takes it to a whole nother level. You started it for a reason. Incipio will be 9 years old this year.
That's amazing.
Happy birthday.
Congrats.
Thanks. And I can't believe the people that are still with me, the people that got sifted out much faster and I didn't see it coming. But well-being, you can't let yourself lose yourself because you're so wrapped up in solving the problem of the next email that happened. So I want to thank all of you for being that sense of stability for me and helping me grow in ways that you don't even know that you've contributed to. So
Likewise, Molly.
Thanks.
Likewise.
Oh,
I know.
This is a really
Insert
sweet way to end it.
some sweet music here, Jim.
That's right.
So, Jim, close that file.
Thanks for listening to the Workforce Therapy Files. We hope you learned something new, and we're thankful for the time that you spent with us today. If there's a topic you'd like us to discuss, reach out to us. Our contact information's listed in the show notes. Until next time, keep your head up.